So, Hare Krishna. So, we stopped yesterday at 2.53 shloka. So, we were about to discuss who is a Sthita Pragna. So, let's see now. Arjuna is more interested. Like Krishna, he was telling about Buddhi Yoga, about a person who practices Krishna consciousness, pure Krishna consciousness. So, Arjuna is very curious. Like he wants to know what are the clear signs of a truly Krishna conscious person. A truly Krishna conscious person means in Sanskrit is called Sthita Pragna. So he wants to know the qualities of a Sthita Pragna. How does he walk? How does he sit? How does he eat? How does he behave? How does he walk? So he wants to know everything about that Krishna conscious, pure Krishna conscious person. So let's see what answers Krishna gives to that, to the questions Arjuna asks. Okay, so this is 2.54. Arjuna Uvacha Sthitapragnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitaddi kim prabhasheta kim asita vrajeta kim. Arjuna said, Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? How does he walk? So basically, Arjuna wanted to know from Krishna what are the clear signs of a truly Krishna conscious person. So how does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? So he wants to know exactly everything about a Krishna conscious person. Okay, so now let's see what Krishna responds to Arjuna's question. Okay, so these are the symptoms and the shlokas which we will see further. Okay, so 2.55 Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajaharti Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Evatmana Tushtaha Sthita Pragnastadochyate. The Blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Now, Krishna is saying, telling Arjuna, see, who is the Sthita Pragna now? A person is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness when he gives up selfish desires born from the mind. So they're saying mental concoction in the sloka. Prabhupada translates as mental concoction means it comes from the mind. Okay, so when he gives up selfish desires born from the mind, means he's no longer interested in his sense gratification, right? He is more interested in pleasing Krishna. So he is satisfied within himself and he feels happiness from the point of soul and not from the point of body. Bodily concept goes away. He understands that he is the soul now and he feels happiness from the soul and not from external temporary things, not from outside things. He feels happiness from within. He knows that now he is the soul. So he feels happiness from the soul and not from outside things. See, normally our mind keeps asking, I want this, I need that, I will be happy if I get these, get this, that, this, right? So these endless wants make us restless. Okay, the more we want, the more we desire. There is never a limit to that. So these endless wants, they make us restless. But a spiritually steady person, he is different. He does not run behind these desires created by the mind. Okay, he is happy from inside. He is not dependent on money or praise or comfort. His happiness comes from connection with Krishna, not from sense pleasure. So, such a person is called Sthita Pragna. See, you can see in the PPT good example for that is Prahlad Maharaj. Though he is the son of a king, he had all the material comforts, but he was not least interested in all of that. He was always like, he was a 5 years child, right? When his father was torturing him and he wanted to kill Prahlada for meditating on Lord Vishnu, right? He was a 5 year child. He was not even interested in playing with his friends, demon friends. He was always sitting in a corner chanting Narayana, and he was always laughing. I mean, laughing in the sense he was blissful within himself. So he knew that he was a soul. What is the nature of the soul? It is blissful always, right? So meditating on Narayana, he was always sitting in a corner and he was so blissful. So that's a good example. So he was not interested in all sense gratification, though you can understand if he is a king's son, he has all the comforts, all these possible ways of sense gratification he could have done, but he was least bothered. He was not interested. He was only happy within himself, right? So that is what a person who is happy within himself, he knows that he is the soul and he's happy from within, and he is not dependent on external sources for happiness. He is a sthita prajna. See, even how much these people, demons, are torturing him or whatever they are doing, he didn't even blink his eyelid, it seems. He was so peaceful, so calm, always meditating on Narayana, and he was feeling bliss within. Okay, so let's go to. See, when Prahlad, he was placed in the fire also, he was very peaceful. You can see him, right? How calm and peaceful. He's happy within himself. And Prabhupada also, he's our founder Acharya. He was also, I mean, like, he was, even though, after ISKCON was established, but he had crores of money with him. When he was on his deathbed, when one of his devotees asked, Prabhupada, what is your last desire? Prabhupada said, I have no desires. Just keep on chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. So they are not at all. See, he had crores of money at that time. ISKCON was like the richest. I mean, like every business person used to come to Prabhupada and ask, how did you make so much money? See, Prabhupada came to the West with just 30 or 40 rupees and he made 40 crores. But he was least interested in the money. He was least interested in sense gratification. When one of his devotee disciples asked him, Prabhupada, what is your last desire? He said, I have no desires. Just keep on chanting. That's all. Okay, such a person, they are called sthita prajna. Okay, they're just happy within themselves just by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. They don't want any external happiness or external material sense gratification cannot make them happy, and they're not interested in all those things, temporary things. They want permanent bliss, which they get by meditating on Krishna. Okay, so let's go to the next shloka 2.56. दुःखेषु अनुद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिर uchyate. One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So now Krishna is telling a person with a steady mind, he does not become overexcited during happiness, and he does not get upset. I mean, like, he has a steady mind and he does not get upset during problems, right? He's not too extreme. Like when there is, like when there are problems, he does not get, what do you say, upset. And when he gets a profit, or when he gets happiness, he does not get he does not become overexcited. And what is they saying here? Krishna is saying they are free from attachment, fear, and anger. Okay, such a person is called a true sage. So see, generally in life, two things always come. What are they? Happiness and suffering. So most people, they become very sad when problems come. They become too excited when happiness comes. But A Krishna conscious person, he is balanced. When trouble comes, he does not panic or lose his peace. Or when happiness comes, he does not become happiness means what, for example, profit. He does not become greedy, or he does not become proud. He understands that both the happiness and suffering both come and go by Krishna's will. See, both are given by Krishna, right? Only everything comes to us when Krishna permits, because they say that not even a blade of grass moves without the permission of Krishna. Okay, so he understands that both these come and go by God's will. Okay, and Krishna mentions the three inner enemies, right? What are they? Attachment. Attachment means what? I must have this. Sometimes we are so we are so attached that, oh, I must have this cell phone, I must have this property, I must get a bonus. Like we are like attached, so attachment. And what is next one? Fear. We get fearful. What if I lose? Sometimes we feel, what if I lose? I mean, like you're so close to a friend or a relative, or someone whom you really love. You get scared. What if I lose this person? Or what if I lose this object? That fear is there, right? So, like that, fear. Then anger. Why did this happen to me? We get angry, right? Sometimes, why does this always happen to me only? Right? So, a steady person, he slowly rises above these. Like what are these three? Attachment, fear, and anger. So, he does not complain. Earlier, he complains. So, a steady person means a sthita prajna, he slowly rises above these things. Okay, so a Sthita Prajna, he stays peaceful in both joy and sorrow because his heart is always fixed on Krishna. So my his a person who's fixed in Krishna, his mind is basically steady. So for him, like everything is like on an equal level. So he's equipoised. So even though there is sorrow or joy, he's like equipoised. Okay. 2.57 यह सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहस्तत्तत् प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठा. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. So, Astita Pragna, they're saying, is calm in all situations. So, whether something good or bad happens, they neither become overjoyed nor hateful. So, they're saying despising. Despising means hateful. They don't become overexcited or nor hateful. So, because why? Their mind is always fixed on Krishna. So they understand when the mind is fixed on Krishna, their understanding stays firm and balanced. Okay. Yeah. Next 2.58. Yada
Mataji,
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
uh, what was the last thing you said, that the person does not become overexcited or
Hateful Prabhuji. He does not hate anything. Okay, Prabhuji.
yes, Mataji?
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. 2.58. Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani.
Gandhi,
Sorry, Prabhuji.
Kurmo Gand, Kurmo Gand,
I'll
Kurmo
read it, Prabhuji.
Gandhi.
I'll read it. No problem. Please, I'll read it. Thank you, Prabhuji. Gurmo anganiva sarvashaha indriyanindriyarthebhyas tasya pragna pratishtitha. So, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell. is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Okay, a sthita prajna, right, or a true Krishna conscious person, he knows how to pull back the senses from temptation. See, just like a tortoise, we can see in the PPTC, the tortoise, it can pull its limbs into its shell, right? Whenever it senses danger, it pulls its limbs outside, and when the danger is gone, again it brings its limbs outside, right? It per its wish, it can bring and it can just bring it in and out, right? Like that, a sthita prajna, he uses the senses only when needed to serve Krishna, and other times he keeps them inside. He keeps them restricted. I mean, he keeps them restrained. He keeps them under control. Okay, so because of this control, their consciousness remains steady and fixed. So he is a sthita prajna, right? Who can control his senses. Like how a tortoise, when it senses danger, it brings all its limbs inside, like you can see in the PPT. It keeps itself protected under the shell by putting all the limbs inside. And when the danger is out, it brings its limbs outward. So, like that, as Sthita Prajna, he uses his senses only to practice Krishna consciousness. Only then he brings he uses his senses. But otherwise, he controls his senses. Otherwise, he brings them inside. Means he restrains the senses like a tortoise. When there is some other attraction for him. Okay, when it is not needed, in the sense, other than Krishna conscious activities, he keeps the senses restrained. Okay, so when he tries to control these senses like that, his consciousness remains steady and fixed. Okay. So that's why they call it Sthita Prajna. It's not so easy to control our senses like the tortoise, right? Just keeping only when he uses the senses only for Krishna, and then other times it is like restrained. Okay. So next 2.59. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavajjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Through the embodied soul may be though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense object remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Okay, so simply by stopping sense enjoyment by force does not remove the desire for it. Okay, the attraction still stays inside the heart. See, for example, you want to restrict a particular kind of sweet for your spiritual growth. For instance, I'm just telling, there is no control on sweets. I'm just giving an example. So if you want to control eating jalebi, so your spiritual master says you should stop eating jalebi or gulab jamun for your spiritual progress. Okay, so now you stop by force. By force, you stop, but you know that taste. That taste remains. That's what they're saying here. See, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, now you stop eating that jalebi, but the taste for sense object remains. But you know the taste of jalebi, right? But someday or the other, because by force you are stopping it, someday or the other you will give in to that temptation, you will eat it. But how can you control that temptation? By engaging your senses in a higher taste. That is, when do you get a higher taste? By practicing Krishna consciousness, by engaging the same senses in Krishna consciousness. Okay, when you engage your senses in Krishna consciousness, you get that higher taste, and then you lose the taste for lower things. Okay, so that is what Krishna is telling here. So simply by force, if you try to stop the enjoyment, that the particular enjoyment by force, that desire remains. How much ever you try to force, but in that that desire is there, you still want to eat it, because the attraction, because you know the taste of that sweet. It is still there in the heart. But when a person he experiences a higher taste, the joy of Krishna consciousness, the lower material desire naturally it fades away. So real control of the senses comes not by just restriction, by forcefully stopping them, but by tasting something better and higher. That is devotion to Krishna. Okay, you should just divert them. When you get a higher taste, obviously you will automatically you will leave the taste for the lower one, and that higher taste you get by practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay, the same senses you want the tongue, you wanted to taste that jalebi, right? Now that tongue is be used in Krishna consciousness for either preaching or talking about Krishna or tasting Krishna prasadam, right? It's like that. So it can be switch it to a higher taste, then automatically you lose the taste for the lower one. See, the same thing is said here. See, in the symptoms of a Sita Pragna, how does he sit? He withdraws senses from sense objects. Okay, see, embodied soul, so restricted from sense enjoyment. So he forcefully tries to control his senses. For example, I was talking about the sweet, right? He restrictfully he tries not to eat that sweet. So what happens? Taste for that sense object remains. But you know the taste of that object, jalebi taste, you know. Forcefully you're stopping now, but that desire and that taste is there. You know that taste for that jalebi. And then, but what happens? You when you develop a higher taste, automatically you lose taste for that lower sense object, right? So, what does developing higher taste mean? Fixed in Krishna consciousness. So, you engage your senses in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so the example is given here. How Vishwamitra, see, he had taste for sense objects. I think it was Menaka. Like Menaka, she tinkled her, ankle bells tinkle or bangles, and then Vishwamitra gave in his tapasya. Right? He was a yogi, tapasvi, right? He had to give in when he heard the ankle bell sound. But if the same person, when they develop a higher taste, like a devotee, now you see in the next screen here, next square, okay, when they are fixed in Krishna consciousness, you see how how they are. They are always, like worshipping Krishna, doing puja, they're honoring Krishna prasadam, they're cooking for Krishna, they're washing the dishes for Krishna, mopping the temple, right? When you develop a higher taste, doing Krishna conscious activities or devotional service, you lose a taste for all the other things. Okay. 60. Yatato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipashchitaha indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind of even a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So here Krishna is telling Arjuna, the senses are very powerful and restless. See, and even a wise person who tries hard to control them can have his mind dragged away by the senses. What about us? Okay, he's Krishna is telling even a wise person tries hard to control them, to control the mind, so that the senses are not dragged away. So, what does this verse teach us? That self control by effort alone is not enough. So, you can't control the senses just by force. Forcefully, you can't stop the senses. One day they will burst out, and you will try to give in. You will have more sense gratification than ever. So, they are saying, what is the alternative to that? Real control, you can control by when the mind is absorbed in Krishna. So forcefully controlling is bad, is a bad way. Okay, you can't force your senses badly, that's a bad way. But what is the correct way? When the mind is absorbed in Krishna, automatically lower desires lose their strength. They get a higher taste. Okay, it's like how, like just like a person who is hungry, after, I mean, like his hunger disappears after eating fully, after eating proper food. That nobody needs to ask him, are you full? Are you full? Automatically, when you keep on eating, your hunger goes away, right? At a certain point, you automatically know. Nobody has to tell you, or you have to tell, or anybody. The moment you eat and you're satisfied, your hunger is gone. You know you are full automatically. So, like that, when the mind is absorbed in Krishna, when you get that higher taste, you lose the interest in the lower ones. Okay, so you should not, it's a bad way to forcefully stop your senses or control your senses, right? That is not proper. The correct way is to engage your senses in Krishna, so that you get a higher taste in Krishna consciousness, so that you lose a the other things become lower. You have a lower taste for the other material sense objects. Okay. See, Sita Pragna, how does he sit? See, senses are very strong. Okay, they're forceful. You should not force them. Okay, they're very impetus means forceful. See, forcibly carry the mind of a man trying to control them. So the mind can even drag the senses of a very powerful person also, a wise person also. But say, like says Durvasa Muni, see, he got so angry. I think all of you know this Ambarish and Durvasa Muni story, where Ambarish Maharaj, he was doing his Ekadasi, and he wanted to, on the day of Dwadasi, he was about to break his fast when Durvasa Muni comes, and Ambarish Maharaj invites Durvasa Muni to come as his guest and honor Prasadam. So he says, Durvasa Muni says, yeah, I'll just come to the river and I'll offer my oblations and come in the river. And he goes, and he doesn't come for a long time. And the Parana time is getting over. Parana time is on Dwadashi, you have to break the Ekadasi between a certain time. So if you don't break your fast within that particular time, that Ekadasi done will be waste. It will become a waste. Okay, that's why Ambarish Maharaj, he gets worried. Oh, my Parana time is getting over. What do I do? He was consulting the rishis and sages there and the ministers there. So they say that, okay, the sages over there, they say that, king, you can just have a drop of water, because his Ekadasi fast was like he doesn't even drink a drop of water. So he can break his fast with one drop of water. So that will be considered like breaking his fast, and he's not eating, right? He's waiting for Durvasa Muni. So exactly at the time when he's taking that drop of water, Durvasa comes and sees him, and he gets angry. What kind of a person are you? You invited me as your guest, and without the guest coming, you're breaking your fast. How you're trying to disrespect me? And then he brings a demon out to kill Ambarish Maharaj. See how the senses are so forceful. I mean, they're so strong. We've seen, right? So it's Durvasa Muni is like using it in a very, I mean, like what? Uh, he's not able to control his senses because he got angry and he's not able to control his senses. He brought that demon out and he sent it against Durvasa. I mean, Ambarish Maharaj.
Ambrish Maharaj.
Yeah. So he could not control his senses, right? So next page, one more we'll see. Sage Vishwamitra also, he was not able to control his senses. When he saw Menaka, he gave in. He was such a great tapasvi that many thousands of years he was doing tapasya. But one fine day, he just listened to the bangles of Menaka or the ankle bells of Menaka, and then he gave in, and they got a daughter named Shakuntala, I believe. Yeah. So, like that, the senses are so strong. They, even such great sages, they give in. But see here, see, but mind engaged in Krishna's service. See, if it is not there in Krishna's service, how the senses can be? See, how Durvasa Muni, he became angry. There's no control over his senses. And how Vishwamitra gave in, he too had no control over his senses. He was such a great rishi, so many thousands of years he did meditation. He gave into Menaka. But if the same mind is engaged in Krishna's service, see, sense gratification becomes distasteful. When all your senses are engaged in Krishna consciousness, Like the material sense gratification becomes like lower. You will not have any interest anymore when you start practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay, it becomes distasteful. So mind easily becomes controlled. Okay, like Maharaj Ambarish. See, even after Durvasa Muni got angry and he sent the demon, you see in the PPT in that first rectangle how Ambarish Maharaj is so calm, right? He is because he's practicing Krishna consciousness. He's a devotee of Krishna. His mind is steady. He could easily control his mind because he's practicing Krishna consciousness. So that is the difference between a person who's practicing Krishna consciousness and not practicing. See, who's practicing Krishna consciousness, his mind is steady. He's able to control his senses. That is why he is still calm. But Durvasa Muni, he could not control his senses. He became angry, right? So that is the difference. Okay, we can't control our senses forcefully or artificially, only through Krishna consciousness. See, Ambarish Maharaj, he was least concerned. He was just folding his hands, and even after seeing the demon, he didn't run away or he didn't get scared. Oh, please, please, Durvasa Muni. He didn't say
Mm.
anything of that sort. He was just folding his hands and he was praying to Krishna. That's all, because he knows inside that he didn't do any mistake. That's why he didn't retaliate, and he was just standing there and he was praying to Krishna. That's it. Okay, so that is Maharaj Ambarish's example. And Yamunacharya, yeah, he's one more great devotee. He says that whenever he thinks at the idea of sex life, he feels like spitting at it. So a person who practices Krishna consciousness, he develops that higher taste. For them, sex life is like he feels like spitting at it. It seems Yamunacharya says so distasteful it is for him. So imagine how powerful is practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
in the previous shloka, the example which you showed of
Huh?
Ambarish Maharaj,
Huh?
uh, when he broke his Ekadashi fast before
Huh?
Durvasa Muni arrived. So, Mataji,
Huh?
did he accidentally arouse the anger of Durvasa Muni
No,
by
he had no
breaking the fast?
intention of making Durvasa Muni angry, Prabhuji. Not like that. Because the Parana time was getting over, the fast breaking window is getting over. So he had to break his Ekadasi fast. He wanted, when he was exactly breaking that fast time, accidentally. I mean, at that time, Durvasa Muni also comes. He didn't want to make, because Ambarish Maharaj is a devotee. He never wanted to hurt anybody. He just wanted to break his Ekadasi fast, right? He just was about he had a drop of water, and then at that time Durvasa Muni comes and sees him breaking his fast. Okay, Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, because he is a devotee, he never has bad intentions, Prabhuji. He was good, and that's why he just on the advice of the sages and rishis and ministers there, he just took one drop of water. Just one drop of water he took, that's all. Okay, 61. तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. A person, so Krishna is telling, a person who controls all the senses and keeps the mind fixed on Krishna has steady intelligence. So here they're saying the same thing again. So real sense control does not come by just force, okay, or strict rules. You can't control the mind or the senses by force. So it comes when the senses are engaged in serving Krishna. Just like Maharaj Ambarish, he used every sense in Lord service. So Maharaj Ambarish, he's a king. He could have actually engaged someone in the to do the cleaning of his altar or decorating the deity or everything he could have done. He could have set one of his servants to do, but he personally used to do everything. He used to make garlands for the deities. He used to offer bhoga to the Lord. He used to clean the temple room. He used to mop the temple room. He used to dress the deities. Everything he only used to do. Right? All. He never used to engage any servant. He personally used to do seva to the deities in his altar. So he engaged every sense in the Lord's service. So when the mind is centered on Krishna, the senses naturally come under control. And when the mind is steady and the senses are under control, the person is balanced, he's peaceful, and he is spiritually strong. Okay. See, Sthita Prajna, how does he sit when the senses are engaged? See, man of steady intelligence, restrained senses. So, we should not try to forcefully restrain our senses, keep them under full control. By constantly, what should we do? By constantly engaging all the senses in the surface of Krishna. Okay? Matpara, fixed consciousness upon Krishna. Paramatma burns up. See, when your consciousness is fixed upon Krishna, what happens? The impurities. Paramatma, he burns up all the impurities in the heart. Okay, when you start chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, all the impurities in your heart go. Like all the six impurities, what are they? Mada, Matsarya, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Matsarya. All those impurities, they start going from the heart. You start getting purified. Okay, so 2.62 Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate. So this is very important shloka. It's a continuation actually. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. This is actually a cyclic chain. Okay, so let's see now. Let's start how this cycle starts. See, when a person he keeps thinking about sense objects, attachment slowly grows, and from attachment comes desire, means lust. And when that desire is unfulfilled, and I mean, like, for some reason it is not that desire is not unfulfilled, not fulfilled, I mean, then you get angry. It's like this. See, first you develop an attachment. For example, you want a cell phone, iPhone. Okay, that attachment grows into lust, desire. Means you're now you want it, lust. You have that lust, but when you go to your mother or your parents and you ask for it, they say they don't give it. Then what happens? You get angry. Anger appears. Okay, so if the senses are not engaged in Krishna's service, obviously they run towards material enjoyment. See, in this world, there are only two things, Krishna and Maya. So if you are not engaged in Krishna's service, you're engaged in Maya's service. Okay, so if the senses are not engaged in Krishna's service, they naturally run towards material enjoyment. So trying to control the senses only by force, it does not last long. So you can never control your senses by forcefully. But if the same senses are used in the service of Krishna, they experience a higher spiritual taste. So material desires lose their power. Okay, so that higher taste is the real protection for us. So the only way we can control our senses is engage our senses in serving Krishna, do devotional service to Krishna. So that way you lose a taste for material objects. That is the only way. When you get a taste for the higher objects, you automatically leave the taste for the lower ones. Okay. So now let's see. We have stopped at anger, right? In the next sloka, we'll see what happens after anger. So we saw attachment. See, contemplating the objects, meditating on the objects, we get attached. And from attachment develops lust. And from lust, anger comes. Okay. What happens after that? See, क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. So, translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, what happens from anger? Complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls again into the material pool. So, what happens from anger? A person falls into confusion. So, confusion causes loss of memory of what is right or wrong. So, in that anger, you get confused. In that confusion, you don't know what is right or wrong. Okay, that's why they say when you're angry, don't take any decision at that time. Okay, because you're in confusion, you don't know what is right or wrong at that time. Okay, so when memory is lost, intelligence is destroyed. At that time, your intelligence doesn't work. Okay, and when intelligence is not firmly fixed in Krishna, it becomes weak. So intelligent, it becomes weak. Okay, when intelligence it becomes weak, you return to your old desires. Okay, and when desires return, what happens? You naturally you fall again into this material world. Okay, so artificially rejecting the world does not save us. So you cannot reject the world, the material objects or sense gratification by force. You can't say, no, 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 I don't want to see that. No, 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 I don't want to hear that. By force, you can't stop that. No, no, I don't want to eat that. You can't say that. By force, you can't do that. But when the same senses are given a higher engagement, right? Automatically, when they get a higher taste, they automatically lose the taste for the lower ones. Okay, so by force, we should never try to control. So we should engage, give the senses a higher engagement so that they lose a taste for the lower ones. Okay, so it's like this. See, if a person he stops eating sweets only by forcefully he stops eating the sweet, but the desire stays inside. He still wants to eat that sweet. He's just stopping it forcefully. But the same person, if he feels full, if he has a healthy full meal, the desire for eating sweets goes away naturally. See, suppose you have a full plate of healthy meals. Now his stomach is full. Now will he feel like eating sweets? No, right? His stomach is full now. Okay, so like that, in the same way, when Krishna consciousness fills the heart, material desires lose their strength. Okay, it's just like rejecting the world. I mean, without Krishna, that is temporary. Okay, so we should understand that a Krishna conscious devotee, he does not see many people, they think they reject the material objects. The sadhus, if we try to give them money, some people they say, no, 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 I don't want money, I don't take money. But Prabhupada, he used to say that I would love to take a photo with so much money, putting my hand like this. Prabhupada used to say, because he would like to use that money not for himself but to spread Krishna consciousness. And he wanted to use everything that is there in the material world because everything in the material world belongs to Krishna. So Prabhupada says we don't run away from all these material things, but we use the same material things in the service of Krishna. Okay, so many sadhus, when they say, no, no, I don't take money, give it to my disciple, he will take it. They will tell like that. But Prabhupada, he says, is not like that. He says, if somebody gives me money, I will take it immediately and I will use it in the service of Krishna. Whatever, anything there in the material world, for example, flight, aeroplanes, or a gorgeous car, Lamborghini, or whatever. I will use it for the service of Krishna. I mean, I can use a Lamborghini to carry the deities, right? Deities of Krishna, Jagannath, Baldev, okay? Or I can use aeroplanes to travel from one place to another for preaching. So he says, I will use everything in the world in Krishna's service. I will not run away. I will not refrain from using them. So I will use everything. Okay. So our devotee is like that. He just doesn't reject the objects of the world, right? So he uses everything in the service of Krishna. So by offering everything to Krishna first, life becomes purified. That's why, even whatever we do, we first offer it to Krishna. See, we cook, right? We offer it to Krishna. So we say, thank you, Krishna, for giving us this food. And then we say, you please first honor it, and then we accept it as prasadam. Anything we do, we just offer it to Krishna first. Whatever, even we do a job. So whatever monthly salary that comes every month, 10% or 15% of it, we give it to in the preaching mission for Krishna consciousness or whatever, right? Like that. So it becomes spiritualized. Okay. See, this is the cycle. Okay, object of the senses, we get attached, then lust develops, then anger, then delusion, then bewilderment of memory, then loss of intelligence, then you fall down into this material world. So this is a cycle that goes on. You get attracted to the object of the senses. You get attachment. From attachment, lust develop. Lust means that desire to get that object. And if you don't get that object, you get anger. From anger, you get delusion. Delusion means confused. You get confused. You're not able to decide what is right or wrong. And then bewilderment of memory. So there is loss of memory. So, loss of memory means loss of intelligence. Your intelligence becomes weak. And when your intelligence becomes weak, you come back to your old material desires. So, because of which you fall into the material world. Okay. Now, this is 2.64. Ragadvesha vimuktais विषयान् इन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा prasadam adhigachati. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord. See, a person, he does not need to run away from the world. The Krishna is telling, okay, he does not have to run away. I mean, renounce everything, leave his responsibilities, and run away from the world. So he can live in the world. He can use the senses, but without attachment and hatred, right? So he can use everything that is there in the service of Krishna, but not for his sense pleasure, okay, for the pleasure of Krishna. So such a person, he is not attached to pleasure. He is not angry when that pleasure is lost. He controls the senses instead of the senses controlling him, and he acts according to the rules, right? And such a person receives Krishna's mercy. See, I'll give you a simple example. See, imagine there's a child, he's holding a sharp knife. If you snatch it forcefully, the child cries and he somehow grabs it again. But if you give the child a toy, his favorite toy, automatically he forgets about the knife. Okay, so like that, Krishna consciousness is that higher toy here. Like how the child, for to the child, the toy is everything. He forgot the knife. So like that, that Krishna consciousness is the higher toy for all of us. Then automatically the senses calm down naturally. Okay, so you got the point. Like how the child, he forgets about the knife when he sees his favorite toy. Now here our favorite toy is that Krishna consciousness. And what is that knife? The senses. The senses, they calm down naturally. So Krishna consciousness is that higher toy, and the senses are that knife that calm down naturally. Okay. So 2.65. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. Okay, so when a person receives Krishna's mercy, the pains and sufferings of material life gradually disappear. Why? Because the mind becomes peaceful and satisfied, and the person's intelligence becomes steady and clear very quickly. Because he's practicing Krishna consciousness, his mind is steady, his intelligence it becomes steady. So, and because his intelligence is steady, everything becomes clear for him. Okay, so Krishna consciousness it brings peace, and with that peace, right understanding naturally settles in the heart. So everything becomes clear when you practice Krishna consciousness. Your mind becomes steady, your intelligence becomes steady, and everything becomes clear, right? So next 2.66, one who is not connected with the Supreme. But what happens if he is not connected to Krishna consciousness is being told in Shloka 2.66. One who is not connected to Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace? Okay. So here Krishna is telling about a person who is not connected to the Supreme. Means he is not practicing Krishna consciousness. Okay, so he cannot have clear intelligence. That is the first point. And he cannot have a clear mind. And obviously, because he has no clear intelligence, no steady mind, so he will have no peace. And without peace, there is no real happiness. You can see in the PPT how that lady is getting so frustrated, right? There is no peace in that lady's face, right? So, in simple words, what we can understand, no Krishna consciousness means no peace, no happiness. And if Krishna consciousness is there, you have a steady mind, steady intelligence, there is peace, and there is true happiness. Okay. So 2.67. As a boat on the water is swept away by the strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. See, here the Krishna is telling, if even one sense runs after enjoyment, Krishna is just telling one sense. For us, all senses run in all directions. Our eyes want to see movies, our ears want to hear Bollywood, Hollywood music, our nose wants to smell something, some weird smell, our tongue wants to eat what not it wants to eat. So our senses they run in all directions. But here Krishna is saying about only one sense, right? If even one sense runs after enjoyment and the mind follows it, okay, intelligence is lost. See, it is he there's they're giving an analogy. It is like a strong wind pushing a boat off a course in a wrong direction. See, when the wind blows, the ship has to go in that direction of the wind. It goes against in the direction it was supposed to go. It doesn't go. It goes astray. Okay, it goes different. So like that, um, like that. I mean, like if one sense also runs after enjoyment, the mind follows it. The intelligence is lost. Okay, they're just telling one sense. Imagine all the senses run. How is it? Right? So that is why all senses must be engaged in Krishna's service. That is the only way we can control the senses. Right? So use everything, engage every sense in the service of Krishna. Only then the mind stays steady and we remain stay safe on the spiritual path. The only way we can control our senses is by engaging all our senses in Krishna consciousness. So we remain safe on the spiritual path. 2.68. Therefore, O mighty armed one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. So here Krishna is telling a person who controls the senses and keeps them away from sense enjoyment has steady intelligence. But how to control the senses? Not by force, right? By restricting them forcefully. It should come naturally. How naturally? By engaging them in Krishna's service. Okay, so such a person, guided by a genuine spiritual master, he becomes fit for liberation. Under the guidance of a spiritual master, if he practices Krishna consciousness, he becomes fit for liberation. Okay, so that is what they're saying here. You can see in this flow chart. See, senses are restrained from, see, living entity. See, one of the roaming senses, they're just talking about one. And the mind, if the mind focuses on one of the roaming senses, right, it carries away the man's intelligence. Okay? But if practiced under a bona fide spiritual master called as sadhaka, candidate for liberation, object of senses, steady. So then how do the senses become? They become steady intelligence. And senses, if the senses are engaged in the service of the Lord, senses become controlled, right? See, when sorry, one second. Okay, so when the senses, what do you say? See, a person who controls the senses by force. So we should never try to control the senses by force. Okay, if you try the senses by force, that desire is still there in the mind. Okay, so because of which we try to enjoy it at a later stage. But the only option, the correct way to do it is not by force. You try to get a higher taste. When you get a higher taste, you try to lose the lower taste. So how do you get that higher taste? By engaging all the senses in service of Lord. That is doing devotional service. So once you get that higher taste, you lose the taste for the lower ones. Okay. 2.69. Yeah, Nisha. Oh, this is a very important sloka, but hopefully I'll be able to explain it properly. Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami Yasyam Jagrati Bhutani Sa Nisha Pashyato Muneha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. What is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is the night for the introspective sages. Okay, so here Prabhupada in the purport he says there are two kinds of people. Okay, a materialistic person and a Krishna conscious person. So a materialistic person, he thinks eating, earning, enjoyment, that is life. Okay, for them, spiritual life feels boring or useless. And when the devotees they chant or read Gita, these materialistic persons they feel sleepy or uninterested. So this means the materialistic person they are asleep to spiritual life. Okay, they are asleep to spiritual life. Okay, so next is the Krishna conscious person. Okay, we talked about materialistic person. Now a Krishna conscious person. Okay, he thinks I am the soul, I am servant of Krishna, and he's always chanting, remembering Krishna. So for him, that is happiness. Okay, for him, chanting, remembering Krishna, serving Krishna, that is happiness. So material enjoyment, he does not like. It is disturbing for him. For a Krishna conscious person, material enjoyment feels like it's a disturbance for him. Okay, this means they are awake spiritually. Okay, Hare Krishna, I think there is some voice disturbance. Can all the devotees be on mute, please? Okay, so this means they are awake spiritually. So what they're trying to say here is what feels like night to the worldly people. See, generally in the night, what do the materialistic people do? They, I mean, in the night they are like awake. They are on the phone or they're watching TV. They go to movies or they go for parties. They go out for eating. All that they do, right? So what is night for all beings? So generally for the material people, that is night. That is the time of awakening for the self control. And by the time they do all this, and they come home, it is like 4:30. They go to parties, they eat, and they do everything. It is 4:30. But the time of awakening for the Krishna conscious person, what do the devotees do at that time? They get up at 3 o'clock, they bathe, they attend Mangal Aarti, they do chanting. So that is the time of awakening for the self control. So what is night for? For night for all beings is they do sense gratification. That is their night. That is the time of awakening for the self control. For Krishna conscious, that time, what do? They practice chanting. They get up at that time and they do all that. Attend Mangalarti, they do chanting, they attend Bhagavatam class. Okay, so that is the awakening for self control. And the time of awakening for all beings. See, the material people, the time of awakening, morning, what are they busy with? They're busy with the sense gratification, shopping, business, money minded, to make money. So they are interested in all these sense gratification, what do you say, shopping, all these things, right? Movies and everything they're interested. But that is night for the introspective sage, and the sage is not at all interested in all these things like money, all these. He is not interested. That is why it is night for him. Okay, because he is not interested in all these things. Okay, so what is night for all beings? So night for all beings is sense gratification for them, and in the night, that is the time of awakening for the self control. But that time, the devotees, they are doing, they are awake. How? Spiritually. And night means what? They are spiritually asleep. The materialistic people, they're spiritually asleep because they don't like spiritual life. So that's why they're asleep. And the time of awakening for all beings. So morning is what? Again, for they run after money, business, all those things. But that is night for the devotees. Why? Because they are not interested in all these earning money, all these things. They're not interested, shopping or whatnot, all these, the hustle bustle, they are not interested in sense gratification and everything. So they, that is night for them, means they are not interested in all these. For them, that is useless, right? So that is what Krishna is trying to tell here. See, activities of materialistic and transcendentalist are like day and night. So, living entity, so two classes of intelligence. Materialistic activities for sense gratification. So, the material people, they are totally into sense gratification, their activities. So, activities are based on sense gratification, okay? And second class is the introspective stage, the Krishna conscious person or devotees. So their activities are for spiritual advancement. Okay, two people, material and spiritual. So one is like material sense gratification, other is like for spiritual advancement. See, activities are like day and night. So here day means what? Day and night indicate that day means they are awake. Night means they are asleep. So the night, the materialistic people, they are asleep in the sense they are not interested in spiritual life, right? And the day means awake. So awake means what? The material people, they are awake to what? Sense enjoyment and all the sense gratification. Okay, but that time the devotees, they are asleep. I mean, they are not interested in all these activities, sense gratification or money or business or shopping or whatnot. All these things, they are not interested. They, in fact, they feel it is disturbing for them. Okay, see, not disturbed by the demands of the senses. Okay, 2.70. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Okay, so here in 70, this verse is compares a person to the ocean. Okay, so just as rivers keep flowing into the ocean, we know that different rivers flow into the ocean. Like that, desires keep coming to a person. Like how rivers keep coming to the ocean, like that, desires keep coming into a person. But a person who's fixed in Krishna consciousness, he's like that ocean. He's always full and steady. He's not disturbed by the desires entering the ocean because the ocean is always full, right? How many ever rivers enter it, it does not matter, it does not change, it is always full. So it is not disturbed. Like that, a Krishna conscious person, he is always full in himself. How many ever desires enter into him, he is not disturbed because he is always steady. Okay, because he's practicing Krishna consciousness. His mind is always steady. He's not disturbed by the innumerable desires coming into him. Okay, so only such a person he can attain true peace, and not someone who's trying to constantly satisfy his desires. See, the more you try to satisfy your desires, you feel like satisfying more. We want more, more, more. It's like adding petrol to, I mean, fire to petrol. Means petrol to fire. Okay, you add more petrol. What happens? The fire increases, but you're thinking you're subsiding it, but it is increasing. Okay, so that is wrong. Okay, so only such a person can attain true peace, and not someone who's constantly trying to satisfy his every desire. Okay, so the Krishna conscious soul remains full and undisturbed like the ocean, no matter how many desires flow into him, and then he remains peaceful. Okay, so he's not disturbed. How many ever desires come, a Krishna conscious person is not disturbed because he's already full in Krishna consciousness. So his mind is steady. So how many ever desires come cannot disturb him. Okay, 2.71. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So, Krishna is saying true peace only comes when a person becomes desireless for sense gratification. Okay, so this means giving up personal desires, false ownership, and false ego. So, false ego means what? We think that we are this body and I am the enjoyer, right? Everybody should listen to me. In this material world, I am the master and you should listen to what I want. And everything in this material world is meant for my enjoyment. So, this is the false ego. What is the false ego? We think we are the body and not the soul, right? So that is why we want to enjoy everything in this world, in this material world. Okay, so here, mm, so a person who acts not for themselves but for the satisfaction of Krishna. So you, if you act for your own satisfaction, it is like you have you what is that? Yeah, karma takes place. I mean, like whatever action you do, you have good or bad karma for which you have to come back to this material world to suffer or enjoy. But if you do the same activity to please Krishna, it becomes akarma. So you get eligible to go back, you get liberation from this material world and you can go back to Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, so here actually, um, desirelessness doesn't mean being inactive or having no purpose. So um, um, it means redirecting all our desires towards serving Krishna. Okay, we can never just stop having desires, right? That is for sure. So what we can do is we can have, instead of material desires, we can have spiritual desires, right? We can direct our desires towards Krishna. Okay, so for example, if you take Arjuna, see, Arjuna, he didn't want to fight for his own gain. He was never interested in fighting. But when he acted to fulfill Krishna's will, he was peaceful. Just because Krishna wanted it, he wanted to please Krishna. So that's why he fought the war. And that's why he was peaceful and he was focused. Okay, so real peace comes when one renounces personal desires. So when we get that real peace when we give up sense gratification, our sense gratification and ego, and live only to serve Krishna. Okay, and I think this is the last shloka. एषा ब्रह्मी स्थितिः पार्थ नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वास्याम् अन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So, Brahmi Sthiti means being fully situated in spiritual life. So, it means living in Krishna consciousness, free from material attachments. So, a person in this state, he never becomes bewildered, even by difficult situations. And at the time of death, such a person can attain the kingdom of God, that is Brahma Nirvana, because their consciousness is fully spiritual, right? They've been practicing Krishna consciousness from such a long time that at the time of death, such a person, he can remember Krishna and he can go back to God. So it does not depend on how long you have been spiritually advanced. What matters is like being steady in Krishna consciousness when it counts. So the main thing is like how sincere you are in practice. It's not how many years you're into Krishna consciousness, how much you're steady in practicing your Krishna consciousness, how much sincere you are. So that is what counts. Okay. So if one is firmly established in Krishna consciousness, he's steady, he's sincere in Krishna consciousness, he is never bewildered, he is never confused, and he attains Krishna even at the moment of death. Right? If you're sincere and you're practicing Krishna conscious steady, like you every day you chant minimum of 16 rounds, you read the Prabhupada books, you hear Vaishnava speeches, you do devotional service, whatever you do, you just put you maintain that steady sadhana, right? That sincerity determines like how fast you progress in your bhakti. Okay, so that sincerity determines at the time of death whether you'll be able to remember Krishna or not. Okay, if you are sincere, definitely you will be able to remember Krishna. Or if you are not able to remember Krishna, if you were sincere and steady in your bhakti, Krishna comes and whispers his name in your ear. Okay, Krishna takes the trouble of coming and he whispers his name in your ear. Okay, sometimes, in an accident, we may leave our body, or in coma, we may leave our body, right? That time, we are in coma means we don't remember anything, right? In accident, also, we suddenly can't remember Krishna. So, that time, if our sadhana was sincere and everything, we have done our sadhana steady throughout, Krishna comes and whispers his name in his ear, right? And then we can go back to Godhead. Okay, so that's it. So Hare Krishna.